We want to hit hard, dealing up to 6d12 damage with a single strike, plus another 66 damage on top of that. And in case you're worried that the dice are just going to all roll ones, we'll add in a flat plus 21 damage to the roll. And in true Hulk form, we won't be depending on any silly smites or magic or anything like that. This is pure, raw physical strength, because sometimes you just want to smash, because we're building the Incredible Hulk in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And first things first, we gotta pick a race. We are going to be going with the strict pure rage-filled Hulk and not the smart glasses-wearing Hulk or anything like that. So with that in mind, we're going to go with a half-orc. Half-orcs are extremely hard to take down because they have the feature Relentless Endurance. So when you're reduced to 0 hit points, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. But you can only do this once per long rest. And you're the Hulk, you're intimidating as all hell, and that works with this race because you get the feature Menacing, which automatically grants you proficiency in the Intimidation skill. Finally, the other big notable feature is you get Savage Attacks. So when you score a critical hit, you can roll 1 additional damage die of that weapon. There is one major downside to this, and that's that half-orcs are kinda short, and the Hulk is, well, hulkingly big. But don't worry, we'll fix that in just a second. Then when it comes to a background, there's a new book out for D&D called Bigby Presents Glory of Giants. This expansion gives us the background Giant Foundling. While this is usually for people that grow up surrounded by giants or hulking dinosaurs, I'm just taking the fact that it mentions hulking anything from this background and applying it to the Hulk. This gives us skill proficiency in survival and one other one of our choice, so we're going to choose performance, just so you can put on a show when you're in the gladiatorial arena. This background comes with a very unique feature called Strike of the Giants, which is a feat that allows you to pick a type of giant and gives you a bonus to your damage rolls once per turn of a particular damage type. It can be some sort of elemental, but the only element that might apply to the Hulk is thunder damage for those loud booms that he pulls off, and that would be Cloud Strike, but that only adds an extra 1d4 thunder damage, and that's just puny. So instead, we're going to grab Hill Strike, which just adds a default 1d6 of damage of the weapon's type, while also forcing the creature to make a strength saving throw or be knocked prone. Then when it comes to some starting stats, we're just going to go ahead and max out our strength, dexterity, and constitution, because the pure rage-filled Hulk doesn't really have any sort of mental stats to speak of. That brings our main stats to 15 across the board, while dumping that mental stuff down to 8. And then we get the racial bonus of a +2 to our strength and +1 to our constitution. Then when it comes to a starting class, considering we need tons of rage to fuel our attacks, it should be no surprise we're going with a barbarian. When you choose to be a barbarian, you have the most starting health out of any class in D&D. Because your hit dice are a d12. You get proficiency in all weapons, up to medium armor, and you get proficiency in 2 skills. So we're going to grab athletics and perception. We also get to choose a starting weapon, and while the Hulk does use his fists on a regular basis, we do see him use that giant hammer, at least in Thor Ragnarok, and he swings around plenty of other things that are much more hammer-like. But a hammer of that size in D&D would just be a maul, and the maul does 2d6 damage, and we want to be able to maximize the overall size of the dice that we're using. So we're just going to pretend that there's a blade on the end of that giant weapon and make it a great axe. This is going to sync up super well with our savage attack ability from being an orc, because now when you crit, you don't just add an extra d6, you add an extra d12 from your racial ability. Then the very first feature you get from being a barbarian is rage. You get 2 rages per long rest, but you get more rages per day as you level up in barbarian. When you rage, you have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. When you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you gain bonus to the damage roll, which is currently a +2, but that also goes up as you level up in barbarian, and you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. The rage lasts for 1 minute, and it ends early if you're knocked unconscious and you haven't attacked anything your turn or taken damage this turn, but as the Hulk, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Additionally, at first level of barbarian, you get unarmored defense, so your armor class can equal 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your constitution modifier, but you can still use a shield and gain this benefit on top of it. Then at second level of barbarian, you get access to danger sense, so you have advantage on dexterity saving throws against effects that you can see, such as traps and spells. Additionally, Additionally, at 2nd level, you get a very important feature called Reckless Attack. So you can grant advantage to your enemies on their melee weapon attacks against you, but this also gives you advantage on all of your attack rolls until your next turn. And this is a great way to make you the tank of the party, because this is supposed to encourage your enemies at attacking you rather than any of your allies. Then at 3rd level of Barbarian, you get 1 more rage per long rest, and you get to choose a primal path, otherwise known as a subclass. And we want to make sure you're pretty darn big. So we're going to be diving back into that Glory of Giants book and grabbing the primal path, Path of the Giant. This grants you 2 features right when you take the subclass, the first of which being Giant's Power. So you learn the language Giant as well as 1 other, so we'll choose Celestial to deal with the gods that you're dealing with in Thor. And you get to learn the cantrip Druidcraft or Thaumaturgy. And Thaumaturgy feels a bit more fitting because you're just allowing yourself to let out a booming yell much louder. The other feature that you get from this subclass is Giant's Havoc, allowing you to make a ranged attack using your strength and still being able to add the rage damage bonus that you get from being a barbarian to the attack's damage roll. And this is the only type of barbarian that gets to add that rage damage to ranged attacks. And that feels pretty fitting because the Hulk does tend to throw large objects pretty regularly. This feature also grants you Giant Stature. So your reach is increased by 5 feet. And if you're smaller than large, you become large. So now you're not a measly half orc, you're a big half orc. Then at 4th level of Barbarian, you get an ability score improvement, so we're going to go ahead and boost up our strength by 2 points. And then at 5th level of Barbarian, you get extra attack, which is pretty key to our overall damage output. Additionally, you get fast movement, giving you a bonus 10 feet of movement to your overall speed. Then at 6th level of Barbarian, you get another feature from your giant subclass, Elemental Cleaver. So now when you're hitting with your weapon, you can deal an extra 1d6 of a particular element. We're going to grab thunder damage just because it follows the same idea of you just hitting so hard that it lets out a thunderous boom. So that means already between your background, your subclass, and your great axe, your first attack of any turn is going to be dealing 1d12 and 2d6, not even counting in any of the flat bonuses you get from your strength and rage damage. Also at 6th level of Barbarian, you get 1 more rage per long rest, and then at 7th level of Barbarian, you get Feral Instinct, giving you advantage on your initiative rolls, and you can still act normally on your first turn even if you're surprised. But the very first thing you have to do no matter what is rage. Then at 8th level of Barbarian, you get another ability score improvement, so we're going to max out our strength, bringing it to 20, and add 1 more point into our constitution. Then at 9th level of Barbarian, your rage damage gets boosted from a +2 to a +3, and you get the feature Brutal Critical. And this is why it was so important to take a great axe, because now if you score a critical hit, which by the way, you're going to be doing reckless attack pretty regularly, meaning that you pretty much always have advantage on your attacks, doubling the chance that you're going to get a crit. And with the feature Brutal Critical, you're allowed to add 1 additional damage die when you do crit. So a critical strike means that you get 1d12 from your basic attack, 1d12 from a basic crit, then 1 more d12 from your racial bonus of Savage Attacker, and 1 more d12 with Brutal Critical, bringing you to a total of 4d12, and then you get to add 1d6 for your Elemental Cleaver and an additional 1d6 for your Strike of Giants. Then you can double those d6s for the overall critical that you get. Then at 10th level of Barbarian, you get another feature from your Path of the Giant, Mighty Impel, which is a feature that's unreasonably fitting for the Hulk, because as a bonus action while you're raging, you can choose 1 medium or smaller creature within your reach and move it to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of yourself. An unwilling creature must succeed on a strength saving throw, meaning that you can literally hit a mother with another mother. Or if you just want to throw around Loki or Thor, you can do that instead. Then at 11th level of Barbarian, you get Relentless Rage, making you just that much harder to kill, because even though you already have Relentless Endurance from being a half orc, now your rage can keep you fighting even if you're really hurt, because if you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging, you can make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw, and if you succeed, you drop to 1 hit point instead. And you can keep doing this, but the DC increases by 5 every time you do it, and doesn't reset back to 10 unless you finish a short or long rest. Then at 12th level of Barbarian, you get 1 more rage per long rest, and you get another ability score improvement. So we're just going to go ahead and throw 2 points into our constitution, and then at 13th level of Barbarian, you get another upgrade to your critical strikes, because now your brutal critical allows you to add one more dice when you crit. Then at 14th level of barbarian, you get another feature from Path of the Giant, Demiurgic Colossus. So when you rage, your reach is increased by 10 feet instead of just 5, and you can increase your size to large or huge if you want to. Plus, your Mighty Impel feature now allows you to move creatures that are as big as large. And finally, your extra damage from your elemental cleaver increases to 2d6, which is an even bigger boost when you start bringing that into your overall calculations for a critical strike. Then at 15th level of barbarian, you get persistent rage, really driving home the idea that that's the trick, you're always angry, because now you don't ever have to leave rage unless you choose to end it. So you can pretty much hang out in Hulk form all the time. The only thing that would stop it is if you fall unconscious. Then at 16th level of barbarian, your rage damage gets boosted from a +3 to a +4, and you get another ability score improvement. So we're going to boost our constitution by 1 point, maxing it out, and we're going to throw 1 more point into our dexterity, making it a bit more even, which mostly just helps our overall armor class. Then at 17th level of barbarian, you get 1 more rage per long rest, and you get 1 more dice when you crit, because your brutal critical upgrades. But we'll save all those calculations for just a second, because we're going to add to that a little bit. Then at 18th level of barbarian, you get indomitable might. So if your total strength check is less than your strength score, you can use the score in place of the total, meaning that you can't roll less than a 20 on any strength check. Then at 19th level of barbarian, you get 1 more ability score improvement, and we're going to take a feat, because we already have more than enough constitution. We have a decent amount of dexterity to help out our armor class, and we already have maxed out strength. So that feat we're going to grab, since we've established that we're swinging with a big old great axe, is Great Weapon Master. Great Weapon Master makes it so that when you score a critical hit or you kill a creature, you can make 1 additional strike as your bonus action. But more importantly, it allows you to sacrifice 5 points of your accuracy from your attack roll to get a +10 to the weapon's damage, which is a massive boost. And considering you're going to be recklessly attacking most of the time, that -5 to the attack roll doesn't hurt too much. But we're still not going to do all the calculations, because we get 1 more very big feature at 20th level of barbarian. You get an unlimited amount of rages, and you get the feature Primal Champion. The Hulk is the strongest Avenger, and Primal Champion drives that point home, because your strength and constitution scores are increased by 4, and your overall maximum for those scores is now 24, which really boosts up the overall ceiling of your capabilities. And by boosting your constitution to 24, that means your unarmored defense is now 20 without wielding a shield, and your maximum hit points are now 285, which, don't forget, you are resistant to every normal type of damage. So those hit points are going to last a really long time. And even if you did get taken down, your ability to roll a constitution saving throw to go to 1 hit point instead has a +13 bonus to it. So the chances you're going to get taken out is pretty darn slim. So now, when you reckless attack, giving yourself advantage and improving your chance to crit, and you wind up critting on that first hit, you get 1d12 from the basic great axe attack. You get another 1d12 from the basic crit. You get an additional 1d12 from your savage attacker from being a half orc. Then you get to roll another 3d12 from your brutal critical improvements. Then you get to roll 1d6 from your Strike of the Giants, another 1d6 from that Strike of the Giants critting, and then another 2d6 from your Elemental Cleaver, which you get to double for another 2d6 from that critting as well. Not to mention the flat damage of the +7 you have from your 24 in Strength, the +4 from your rage damage, and the additional +10 that you get from your Great Weapon Master, bringing the average critical strike to 87 damage with a single hit. But if you just so happen to get unreasonably lucky and roll all maximum dice, you're going to hit hard enough to deal 129 damage from a single crit with no magic, no smites, just pure strength. I had been waiting a while to build this overall character because I knew this giant book was coming out, and I was just hoping that the subclass would fit, and I think I was right. Let me know what you think about this overall build in the comments down below, and if you have any requests for a build, let me know down there as well. If you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below. Just like my player character patrons, Godzilla Khan, Robert McKinnon, Jensen Santiago, Mugen, Elisa Martinez, Anthony McDonald, Panda Milkshake, Alistar Star Nix, Ted Z, Digimit, Andrew Nobles, Melendez Robinson, Karkat Kitsune, Z13, Viral Naravar, Kesta, the Dino 21, and Benjamin. Then going above and beyond that are the patrons that I actually play D&D with: Braden Aldrich, Daniel Sweeten, Conman ZX, Cyberciety, Talon Starkey, Demiurge, Daniel Galvin, Michael, Eric Wade, Salvador, and Kilo Kilo. But then going above and beyond anything I ever expected is my God tier level patron, and that's GameStake, and I cannot thank him enough. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to go into an unstoppable rage, always be angry, and crit with pure strength as the Incredible Hulk in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.